Well, a warm welcome to today's talk. It's Friday, the 21st of January. Got some pretty interesting graphics from different parts of the world to show you in a minute. But I want to start with a bit of a question, really. And you know as much about this as I do. Why is China persisting with this zero COVID policy, which can't possibly work in the age of Omicron, and yet they seem to be persisting with it? So what exactly are they doing here? So during the past month, 30 major Chinese cities have reported locally transmitted cases. And there's been fairly dramatic lockdowns there. Now, they have worked in the past in China. Maybe this is what they're thinking of, but they won't work with Omicron. They simply won't work. So why are they doing this? Today, on Friday, 23 local cases in 5 cities. Hong Kong, this story really sort of beggars belief, really. It's quite bizarre. In Hong Kong, there's a customer and a pet shop worker, and 11 hamsters have tested positive for Delta variant. Okay, that's for Delta. They're going to kill more than 2,000 hamsters, ban import of small animals. Residents to surrender hamsters imported since the 22nd of December. Infection in a pet shop owner. The pet shop customer was probably infected from a worker in the pet shop. I mean, this really is, it really is fairly bizarre. I mean, these are hamsters. What are they going to do? Drive to Barnard Castle to test their eyesight? Are they going to drink wine for 25 minutes in the garden? Are they going to break COVID rules by having a beer with colleagues before working for the rest of the evening, albeit in a state of slight intoxication? Are they going to drive across the city to see their lover or become amorous with their research assistant? I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can keep hamsters in a cage, leave them for a few days, the incubation period and the sickness period will pass, then they'll be absolutely fine. Just keep them in a well-ventilated area. It's not cold in Hong Kong. You could easily do that. Just weird what they're trying to do here. Technically, there's been no cases of hamster to human transmission. There's been lab cases, of course, and I'm not saying it's impossible. I would have thought it's much more likely from rats, which will be much more ubiquitous and, of course, essentially impossible to control. So culling hamsters really is bizarre and... yeah, apart from the ethical issues. And health officials are testing rabbits, chinchillas and guinea pigs now as well. So make what you will of that. Anyway, let's look at some interesting, serious data here. New confirmed COVID-19 cases per million. And this is the trend that we're seeing now. Germany's got over Delta and is now experiencing Omicron. The UK, it's Omicron for a while now and it's coming down. Netherlands, likewise, they did have Delta, now it's Omicron. The United States, I think the cases in the United States are starting to go down now, and it is roundabout when we expected it. So it's working out roughly as we thought it would do in the States. Spain, again, Omicron surge, but flattish there. Italy, Australia, actually down a little bit in Australia, and we'll be looking at that in a minute. Basically, in eastern Australia, New South Wales, Sydney area, it seems to have peaked. Western Australia, they haven't opened the borders yet, so it hasn't started yet. So Australia's a very mixed bag. Belgium, definitely a sharp rise there, isn't there? Portugal, France, Denmark. Any guy with ideas what this green line might be for the highest country? There we go. One of the countries to vaccinate earliest was Israel. Very high numbers of cases. So they're new cases. Nearly all Omicron. Now, Germany and Netherlands. Now, this data is out of date. The Omicron percentage here is higher, but not so much because Netherlands and Germany were getting over a case of Delta when Omicron struck, and Omicron is in the process of replacing Delta there, which is good. So I suspect the actual levels of Omicron are much higher in Germany than Netherlands here because of the delay in data. Denmark, the United Kingdom, the United States, well, 99%, 99%. These are probably round about right. So Denmark, 99% Omicron. United Kingdom, 99%. United States, 97% Omicron. France, 97% Omicron. And Omicron will carry on replacing Delta in the bits where Delta is left. Hospitalizations. Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden going up, Israel, Portugal, Australia. Australia, they're probably just about peaked now. So that line for Australia there probably is fairly accurate. A little more on that in a minute. Belgium, they're going up. United Kingdom, they're going down slightly. Italy, Spain, France going up, and the United States remain high for the multiplicity of reasons that we've looked at in recent days and indeed argued about. Now this is the R number here, so this is quite interesting. So that's the R value of 1 just there. So anything below that, cases are decreasing. So what have we got? That's the United Kingdom. So cases are definitely going down. New cases definitely going down in the United Kingdom. Netherlands, just about on the border. Is that, yeah? No, that's Netherlands there, just under the border. But all the rest are actually above 1. So that's the R equals 1 line there. So United States, France, Israel, Italy, Spain, Austria, Denmark, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Sweden, in that order, all with increasing cases. So there we can expect the cases to carry on increasing, at least for a period of time. So let's look at the what the CDC's been saying now. Actually got some graphics from the States here. Let me show you those first. Now this first one from the States here, this is US hospital admissions, and they're just starting to go down now. So these are admissions, not inpatients, hospital admissions, and they're just starting to go down. And I think that's genuine. Now, the second one is actually patients in hospital. And again, we can see that the figure there is, if we get to the right one, I think things are just starting to level off or go down there with hospital patients in the States. Now, if you go onto the website, which I put the link for, you can see it everywhere. Actually, that's not the United States. Sorry, my apologies. That's New York, where they've started going down a little bit. Because New York was one of the first areas to be affected. And when we look at New York in terms of, this is New York in terms of new admissions, then we do see that that is going down quite nicely. So the areas that were infected first in the United States, the cases are now, the hospitalizations are starting to decrease, which is pretty encouraging. Now, the Centre for Disease Control's put out some new information based on fairly thorough, it has to be said, data for December. In December, compared to fully vaccinated persons in each group, shown below, the monthly rates of COVID-19 associated hospitalizations. So here we have it, 9 times higher in unvaccinated adolescents compared to, so this is vaccinated versus unvaccinated adolescents. They were 9 times more likely to be hospitalised if they weren't vaccinated. 18 to 49, it was 12 times more. Older age groups, 50 to 64, it was 17 times more, and likewise in the older age group. So the CDC there are clearly saying that full vaccination, and by full vaccination they mean 2 doses of the vaccine, is good at keeping people out of hospital. And then they've given us a graph here, fully vaccinated hospitalizations along the bottom and no vaccine at all, the red one on the top. So we can see a clear difference in the rates there, that's true. And for the boosters, the protection's even greater. So in December, compared to people after 3 shots, in other words, those that have been boosted compared to those not vaccinated at all, in those not vaccinated at all, there was 44 times greater numbers of admissions in the 50 to 64-year-old age group, and 49 times more admissions in the 65 and older age group. And that's based on US-wide data. So this idea that the vaccines, and especially the booster vaccines, are not that good at protecting against symptomatic disease, but are good at protecting against hospitalisation, is bearing up now with one data set after another. I think we can basically put that into the realms of science now. Now, we could argue about the risk-benefit of an analysis, but I think that data's fairly convincing, that people that have had 3 doses are more protected than people that have had 2, who are more protected than people that have had 0. And here we see that graph here, in fact. Rates of COVID-19 hospital association by vaccine status. This is in adults aged 50 to 64, this example. Again, if you go onto the site, you can click on any example you want. But people that have had 0 vaccines have got the highest hospitalizations, then people that have had 2 vaccines lower, and people that have had 3 vaccine doses lower still. And as we say, that's based on nationwide data. So that is actually fairly convincing. The reason to get vaccinated is not to prevent particularly, well, a little bit, but not particularly to prevent symptomatic disease. It's not really to stop you spreading it onto other people, although it will a little bit. The main reason is to stop you getting hospitalised. Now, Omicron wave, I'm looking at Australia now, New South Wales. Omicron wave seems to have peaked in New South Wales. So Professor Easterman, epidemiologist, biostatistician, R is now less than 1 in New South Wales. In fact, it's 0.83 in New South Wales, Sydney area. Victoria, Melbourne area, 0.8. And he's absolutely certain it's peaked in New South Wales and Victoria. So there we go. Cases in Eastern Australia have peaked. I think we can basically say that now. The professor said, I would expect to see hospitalisations starting to come down now, and indeed they are. Victoria Chief of Health Brett Sutton on Monday, case numbers were close to peaking. Well, today is Friday and I think they have peaked. I'm pretty sure they have peaked. Expected number of people in hospital would increase at least for a period of time, but again I think that might be peaking now as well, at least in Eastern Australia. So here we see the trend. Now these lines here, there's a bit of confusion in Australia because some of this line is made up of the rapid antigen tests and some of this line is made up of the PCR test, but they've combined the data now, and this is the data for Victoria, and there's no question that the numbers are coming down in terms of cases. And this is despite testing, which is okay. There's been a lot of logistical difficulty with testing, and of course the cases are going to be massively less than the infections. The cases are just a subset of the infections. And yet I think we can use this as a guideline. They are coming down, and that's what the local epidemiologists are saying. So looking good actually in Australia, at least that side of Australia. New South Wales, again, well, definitely downward trends now. There's no question about it. The combination of the vaccination that the people there have had has protected them largely from Omicron. It means the Omicron wave has passed quickly. Now, we were concerned about Australia because when we first started looking at this, we were looking at data from South Africa, where 72% of the what we might call the community immunity or the herd immunity in South Africa was actually from natural infection with low rates of vaccination, whereas in Australia they had essentially no natural infection and very high rates of vaccination. So we couldn't really extrapolate too much from the South Africa to the Australian situation, but it's turning out now in this what is essentially a massively, well, it's a national scale experiment really. It's the real world, but we are learning from it. And that's showing us that the vaccination is protecting and is shortening the Omicron wave and is protecting from hospitalizations to a very large extent, as we're about to see. So really quite a relief about Australia, because it could have been that the very low numbers of hospitalizations that we were seeing in South Africa for quite a long period of time, and indeed still fairly low, was because the high levels of protection that we got against Omicron from natural immunity. But it's turning out that the vaccines do just as good a job. So quite a sigh of relief there actually for the Australian situation. And then the latest data, New South Wales hospital numbers should begin to plateau this week. Well, indeed they have. This is the latest data here for New South Wales hospitalizations, and we see that I think they have peaked, and I expect these to carry on going down now. I would expect this to be a downward trend. How quickly it's going to go down, of course, we don't know, but it will go down. Now, this line here is their amber alert level when more than 15% of beds are COVID patients. The red alert level would be, so that's 15% line there. The red alert line, which is not shown, is 30%. So they've been nowhere near the red alert line, and they've been just under the 15% amber alert line. And the amber and the red are associated with the various steps they would have taken in Australia to make more treatment capacity available for COVID patients, but it hasn't been necessary. It's been difficult. I'm not saying it's not been difficult, as in the UK, but they have not reached their amber alert, and it's now starting to go down. So I think that's really pretty good news for Australia. Now, the interesting one is Western Australia and New Zealand, which are both completely closed off. So Western Australia has got very few cases. And as soon as they open the borders, everyone's going to get it all of a sudden. And it's the same in New Zealand. Now, they can't keep closed up forever. So are they going to open it at some stage? Well, they have to. And then how do you avoid everyone getting Omicron all at the same time? I'm not sure that you can, really. So political decisions to be made in those countries. Now, just before we finish, let's just look at some UK data here. Now, this is, let's look at the daily update, first of all, for the UK. So we see cases are down quite a lot, which is good. And indeed, infections are down, we believe, because not only cases down here, but symptomatic infections are down on the COVID symptom tracker app. Deaths are up. There's been, well, it's still well under 2,000, but it's 288 deaths a day. So it's still relatively high, mostly in older people, mostly in people with comorbidities, but nevertheless, deaths remain fairly high. Now, these will start to go down soon. My big proviso here is flu. Now, Tim Spector's been talking to his virologists, and he thinks, or Tim Spector reports that his virologists have told him that they think we're probably going to get away with flu this season. I'm not so sure, because there are cases in Asia and in Iran, and it's a nasty type of flu, and there's still time to spread because it's only the 21st of January. So we've got, what, February? We've got at least 2 more months when flu could easily spread in the United Kingdom. So I don't think we're out of the flu woods yet, and that could be a problem. But at the moment, it's not. There's virtually no flu in the UK at the moment. COVID cases, well, clear decline, isn't there? I mean, this is such good news. Such good news. And areas like London that were affected first, even greater declines. So this is patients admitted to hospital, which is clearly going down. Patients in hospital is going down a bit. And patients in intensive care has remained low, which of course is good news. So pretty encouraging news really from the United... Excuse me. It's not saying things still aren't difficult. They are. Hospitalizations are still high in the United States. But now that cases have started to go down, hospitalizations will follow, as they will in the UK. Areas of Europe still going up. Now, I haven't had time to investigate it today, but people have told me that cases are going up dramatically in Mexico and South America, so we'll have to try and get around to looking at that. And still, we remain concerned about the situation in Eastern Europe as cases spread east into areas with lower levels of vaccination. So that's us for today. Thank you for watching. If you're in the United States, you've got a few weeks to go yet. If you're in the United Kingdom, it's looking much more positive. And of course, yesterday we looked at all the lifting of restrictions that's road mapped out for the UK over the next few weeks. So I'm very optimistic about our Western highly vaccinated countries. More concerned about Central South America and Eastern Europe at the moment. And China are going to have to open up at some time, and when they do, Omicron's going to go everywhere, so we will watch what will happen with interest. And thank you for watching.